It's the waitingfornextyear.com podcast. I'm your host, Craig Lindell. We got to do a podcast just about 2 years ago that we never thought we were going to be able to do with the Cavaliers winning the championship, and now we're going to do a podcast we hoped we'd never have to do again. Man, LeBron chooses LA. At least he didn't make us wait, right, Jeff?
Yeah, I guess that is the one nice thing is it's the first day of free agency, and they slipped just a little press release out. There wasn't a big show. You know, there was a big rumor that he was going to do a video or something on the Uninterrupted, and then a Space Jam 2 trailer. So, yeah, this is much less embarrassing than that, I guess.
That would have been in poor taste.
So it's nice. We just had like a little, and he did the nice little Instagram thing. Did you see that?
Yeah, he had just thanking Northeast Ohio for the last 4 years and saying, "Hey, I'm not really going anywhere." LeBron James Family Foundation.
Yeah. So, you know, as having your heart ripped out of your chest can go, this was about the best way to go about it.
All right, so let's break it down a little bit, I guess, because I think the prevailing sentiment, at least, and by the way, I'm on Twitter temporarily. I'm logging back off for a little bit after this because I just can't handle. It's not a good place for me to interact with anybody about this, so I'm just not going to. But the prevailing sentiment is mostly, hey, you can hardly blame LeBron. This is Dan Gilbert's fault. And it's really hard to disagree with that sentiment. I mean, we're talking about a guy who I will justify the letter in any number of ways. It's a different time and place. I think that judging it too harshly takes you into like hindsight territory. But since LeBron's been back, you know, you've seen him trade Kyrie, have David Griffin no general manager really during the most important time in the 4 years, and it's not really that hard to understand. Number one, why LeBron signed so many short-term deals for Dan Gilbert, and why he ultimately decided to spend these next 4 years away.
Yeah, and when you're a fan of a team, we justify everything. And I feel like it was bad because even Cavs fans were kind of no longer justifying a lot of what happened. In those specifically like the last year here, where we waited for Chauncey Billups for 3 weeks or whatever to make a decision if he was going to be the GM, and clearly
I forgot about Chauncey Billups.
Oh yeah, I mean that whole offseason was a pretty massive disaster. It was, and if you were sitting on the outside watching, yeah, how could he ever trust that this organization was gonna be the one to hitch his wagon to through the end of his career? And honestly, it's almost surprising he gave us 82 games and he gave us the effort he gave us through the playoffs to get us to where we were. And that was some incredible performances. He certainly gave it his all. There's no 2010 or whatever when he was tearing off his jersey and the left-handed free throw, that whole thing. I mean, there was none of that this year. You don't feel cheated by this season of LeBron by any means. If anything, he should feel cheated.
Oh, I felt a little bit bad about the broken hand, but I won't pick nits.
It was dumb, but it came from a place of passion, which is fair. I guess kind of my point on it wasn't that he was here and didn't care. He didn't have one foot out the door. He was certainly giving it all while he was here, and that's of little solace now. You know, we, especially in the NBA world, everybody wants everybody to just be happy for everyone and wants the players to achieve maximum happiness, and fans should just cheer for everyone to be happy. And, you know, I'm not saying that we have to do that. Certainly I'm disappointed. Certainly I'm bummed. Certainly there's things that are going to annoy us about it, but it's hard to find a ton of huge faults with him on this one.
Yeah. Oh man, it is a little bit weird though, because you have to think LeBron made the decision based on something organizational, and granted the Lakers have not been any semblance of organizational stability over the last 10 years or whatever, but you know, they solidified things. Magic Johnson, Rob Pelinka, you know, they had their power struggle, and Genie Boss won, and that that organization right now looks like a bedrock of stability compared to what the Cavaliers have.
Yeah, and they've drafted well. It wasn't this front office, I don't believe, that did it, but Kuzma and Hart are guys that they found later in the draft, and Luke Walton's a great coach, and they finally kind of figured out how to use Julius Randle, who's kind of not a current model NBA player. You have to find out ways to make him valuable. So they've done some good things, and maybe I'm completely off, and I'm putting words in LeBron's mouth on this, but I wonder how much of this was just LeBron and or LeBron's family wanted to live in LA. It feels, if he was looking for the best basketball situation, it was Philadelphia by a mile, or forcing his way into Boston and via trade or something. But
which I gotta interrupt you for a second. And we can talk more about this. I did have to tell my two boys that LeBron decided not to come back, and that he went to LA. And my older son Ben had a lot of things to say. And a lot of justifications, including, this is not what I was trying to tell you, but he was saying, well, LeBron probably he's not going to play forever. He has to retire someday. That was one thing that he said. So automatically looking for the bright side. And then the other thing that he said was, well, at least he didn't go to the Warriors. That would have been really bad.
Kids are the best.
I know.
I told my daughter, and she's about the same age as your youngest, and she was just getting really into it and really into LeBron, and had asked me randomly this week a couple of times to take her to see LeBron and to see the Cavs, and she knew it was something that was really important to me, and was clearly trying to make an effort to get into it. And so it was clearly something that we would have shared. So I had to sit down and tell her, and I'm all bummed because her and I were just getting into it together, and she was really bummed because she thought LeBron was like the president of the whole earth and stuff. And yeah, it was like this weird emotional thing. And then she goes, but I can still get cotton candy at baseball games, right? Yes, that is very true.
Which is so great. It's so great.
And it helps put it in perspective.
So my younger son, who is about the same age as your daughter, I not only had to tell him, but I had to tell him while he was wearing a Kyrie jersey. So I think he took it a little bit easier than a little bit. He's already used to losing the value on his jerseys. So,
is it going to be hard for you because the Indians and Cavs have been so good through these last couple of years are pretty much their formative years of sports fandom? I would think that they're not going to understand the whole Cleveland thing growing up. They're going to think that this is normal, right?
Man, they might think it's normal. I don't know. More than I'm sad or I'm mad or anything else, this whole thing has me. This combined with my falling out with Jimmy Haslam last year just has me going, why do I do this? Why would I? It really makes me want to retire from sports blogging and podcasting. It makes me consider it. And that's not me like having a temper tantrum and taking my ball and going home. It's just like, I'm not so sure that adding conversation alongside this is meaningful anymore.
We talked a couple of weeks ago about how I was thinking of like, what is another hobby that I could just try to pick up that would, fill a little bit of this void of this unhealthy, just constant sports stuff, especially when the stories are negative. And I told my wife I wanted to buy a Nintendo Switch, and I was like, all right. I was like all into it and researching. She's like, I've never seen you play a video game. I've known you for 10 years. Like, why? You're not going to play this ever. You're not going to enjoy it. Why are you so like into this? I was like, I can't think of anything else that I literally can't scroll Twitter while I do. Like, I feel like that is an important thing I need in my life. It's like a hobby that I can't sign on and see what's happening, to my favorite sports team or whatever else is going on in the world, because I just like need a break from that. And it's funny that this is our hobby and we're saying that.
Well, and it's funny though, because before I started sports blogging, before I kind of focused in on sports, I was just kind of personal blogging, and sports was a part of that. And I was also writing music and movie and television reviews at Blog Critics, which is a big group website, like online magazine type. And, I even wrote a little bit about politics back then, which is kind of cringy today, knowing how little I knew, or how much history I didn't know. But the idea is that, like, I enjoy creating. I like writing. I like podcasting. I've dabbled in video. I think it's fun. Like it never had to be about sports. I found I was passionate about it at the right time, and there was a market for it, and it was fun, and we were building, waiting for next year, and everything else. But like, as long as I scratch that itch of creating content somewhere, it doesn't. This is going to seem really sad in the liner notes. People are like, they had an existential crisis about contributing to a sports website. But if you don't have an existential crisis after LeBron leaves your franchise for the second time, after just 2 years after winning a title and 1 year after they traded away the second, the second coming of LeBron, who was supposed to take like, we had the plan, it was all lined up, it was all set up. 2 years ago, there was a parade, and within 1 year they traded Kyrie. Within 2 years, he's a Laker. And Kevin Love is the last man standing. Like,
which is hilarious.
I refuse to go, woe is me. I refuse to get mad at LeBron. But seriously, what the fuck?
I mean, the crazy thing is it's two plans that went awry. Like, all right, LeBron left. That was awful. We got Kyrie, and it's our second chance. And, hey, we could build something out of this. We might not win a title, but we could be really good with Kyrie. And then we get LeBron back, and you're thinking, all right, well, we've got LeBron, and he's always kind of a flight risk. But if LeBron leaves, at least we'll still have Kyrie. And it's funny that, like you said, a year ago, like, we kind of had both of those guys, and it was like, all right, well, push come to shove, we should still have a top 20, 15, ish player no matter what in 2 years. And now we're standing here with Kevin Love, who I appreciate a lot, but is clearly not that.
He's a very good player. He's not a great player.
Right. And maybe he changes, maybe being on his own, but it feels like just the stink of the last 4 years is going to be on him a little bit. It's going to be hard to break old habits with him here.
Yeah, I have no idea. And I think the Cavaliers can be very reminiscent of the Heat when LeBron left the Heat and Chris Bosh got hurt. In essence, that's kind of what happened to the Cavaliers. They lost 2 out of the 3 stars that gave them a championship.
So I was all in on, all right, well, if LeBron leaves, we got to tank, and we got to do this, and then we flip this, we take on bad contracts, and we get picks. And now that it's happened, if they just don't want to trade Kevin Love, and they just want to be decent this year, like, that's okay, that's fine. Like, just okay, I'll watch Kevin Love all year. I don't know, I'm having trouble caring about big picture plans and all of that. Like, I'm just not ready to say goodbye to this team. Like, if that's what we do, and we watch Kevin Love, and maybe we fight for an 8th seed, like, that's not the worst thing.
Well, and I don't think full-on tank is necessary. I don't think the process has to play out here. I think you obviously have to draft well. You have to accumulate assets. But Dan Gilbert bought the pick that became Kyrie Irving. If the Cavaliers are smart with their finances over the next couple of years and let some of these big money deals expire without replacing them all, they're going to have room for 2 top players. And I know they're not the Lakers. I know they don't have Magic Johnson, but like, is Houston really that much better an NBA city than Cleveland, or has Morey just done a really good job of setting it up? Like, I think Houston's a fine city, but my point is, if you just massage the cap, I don't think you need to complete and totally suck the way the Cavs did and the 76ers perfected. I just don't think you have to do that.
And with the new lottery odds, they're good and bad, because they changed it from having if you had the worst record, you had a 25% chance at the top pick, and the second worst had the 20%, and then 15, and then 12, and now it's the top 3 all have a 14% chance, and you have a higher odds of moving up into the top 3 down the lottery. So that's good and bad. It takes away the ability to do the process. We can't tank for 5 years and hope to land a top pick, because the odds are against you at that point.
Right.
So it's hard to see how we build a super team, but it's very easy to see how we build a nice little team. Like right now, all right, if we keep Love or if we trade him, but we have some fun little guys like Larry Nance, and if we sign Rodney Hood and Cedi Osman, and hopefully Colin Sexton is good, we can have a couple of these guys, and maybe we luck into a top pick and we get that top, a really good rookie. We find our Donovan Mitchell, or we find our somebody like that, and all of a sudden you're jumping back into it, and you're getting guys to come sign with you because you're a fun young team. And so maybe that did take away the need to completely bottom out, but it feels like it also put a cap on our ceiling. And that's what scares me a little bit, is like, it's hard to care because I don't see the ceiling of us ever being this good again. And so it's hard to care about how he
there's
gets there.
always a cap on your ceiling until you get lucky enough to get the number one pick and Anthony Davis is sitting there, or you draft Antetokounmpo and he becomes the Greek freak. It just it's about that process, and I'm not sure that Kobe Altman's the guy to do it. I really, really question whether Dan Gilbert's the owner to allow it to ever happen again. And that's really the sad thing. It's like when I talk about existential crises, that's what I went through with the Browns, because in my mind, it didn't matter who they put in the general manager role, who became the president, who became the head coach, who became the offensive coordinator. As long as Jimmy Haslam was there ruining things from the top down, no matter who, or setting it up to fail no matter who, it just was never going to work. And Dan Gilbert has never had a good basketball team that didn't have LeBron James on it. And that is something that is going to be true until it's not.
No, and that's very true. And he is terrifying. And I do wonder, does he stick around through the lean years? Because, we're not likely to find a Kyrie the second year like we did last time. Like, we were really lucky last time to come right out of
LeBron.
But
they were awful with Kyrie.
But it was still something to watch. I mean, can you imagine being an Orlando Magic fan?
I know this, but in terms of believing in Dan Gilbert...
Oh, true.
I mean, he entrusted Chris Grant, who accumulated assets very much, it's like the Sashi Brown argument, except, prior, didn't know the first thing about building a basketball team.
No, and that's totally fair. And I'm not trying to say I have faith in Dan Gilbert at all, because I think that will be a disaster. But things change. Maybe he sells. Maybe something happens. Maybe he gets less involved. I mean, 10 years ago, we were all saying the Indians could never win with the Dolans. And
thank God Randy Lerner sold that football team.
I know we talked about this, and I know there's nothing more Cleveland than on the night that LeBron left talking about the Browns.
You remember when Sacramento Kings fans were thanking their savior for buying that football team? Basketball team.
Like, it's amazing how teams can be bad through multiple owners. Like, that doesn't make sense, and it happens all the time, right? Like, how does that stink, like, not get washed off of like nothing is the same? How does that stay consistent? It's amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, it's a weird time. I'm just kind of sad. I'm not nearly as sad or mad as I was. I was absolutely crushed when he left in 2010.
I responded poorly. I'm embarrassed at how I acted in 2010.
I still defend us to a certain extent, even if hindsight, smug, fart-sniffing NBA Twitter thinks that we're just nothing but embarrassments. We were the first. LeBron was the first, and he executed it in a manner that will never be repeated because it was so awful. And so anybody who judges us too harshly is an asshole. They're lying. They're lying about what the situation was. Everybody felt sorry for us for those first 4 days.
And I also think we overthink sports a lot. And why are Cavs fans almost universally positive about LeBron's departure this time? Because we won with him.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he left last time. He left a 66-win team and went to another team. Yeah, we were mad because we never won a title, and we felt like we could have if he stayed, and he left. And now he won a title, and he's leaving, and that stinks. But, we won our title, and so we're not all that mad. Yeah, I think we overthink it. Like, we're sports fans, excited about our sports team, and we're pretty much just cheering for wins and losses. And you can apply a lot of other things to it, but at the end of the day, that's the easiest answer.
No, but I think it's even easier, and this is something I got in very respectfully. By the way, just for those paying attention, you can be super duper respectful when you have a disagreement or a finer point to point out to somebody who writes something on the internet. In all the coverage, kind of looking back at 2010, the one thing that I keep seeing glossed over was the decision and how bad a mistake that was and what that did, because the worst of Cavs fans were always going to react poorly. There were always going to be a couple people burning jerseys and a couple people like saying the worst possible things you could ever possibly imagine on Twitter at LeBron. There were going to be those people. The problem with the decision was that it took anybody who would have wanted to take the high ground and insulted them to such a degree that I think there was no tempering. It was all pure rage and anger and hurt and frustration, where nobody was able to take the high road. It took the people who would have wanted to try and take the high road, and they were just too pissed.
And it created an environment where everyone had to react the way they did. I mean, they sat out, they did all these meetings, there was all this, these rumors and this and that, and everybody was on TV talking about it. And then they set up a show, so we're all anticipating it. And then the show came on, and it was an hour long, and they didn't announce until the very end. And it was
the Dog
almost,
and Pony show at the IMG Center.
Yes, and it was all set up for everyone to have a reaction. It was an event specifically created for everyone to respond to, and we played our part, and we played it poorly. But it's they talk about in reality shows where people act like crazy people because they're sent through this whirlwind of a couple of weeks where their lives are just upturned and it's just mayhem. And it kind of felt like that, where everything was focused on that 100% and shoved down everybody's face, and you had no choice but to react. They put cameras in your face and waited for you to react, and we definitely did a good job of giving them content for it. But yeah, I will defend it to a certain extent, just in the fact that we're sports fans, and it was a horrible moment, and it was built for us to react live on TV in the worst way.
Well, and much like reality TV, where they almost script the reaction by scripting the catalyst, naming the TV show The Decision and doing it all that way, there's a reason why it will never be repeated. There was only one way for that to go.
Right.
A fan base, myself included, has never been crushed over anything the way they were basically intentionally crushed by LeBron James during The Decision. And that's the lens with which you kind of say, well, Dan Gilbert's letter was really dumb in hindsight, but like in that moment, it was kind of needed. Like there were a lot of really, really like I might never come back from this kind of reactions to what happened to The Decision.
From a purely marketing standpoint, it was genius. I mean, he went too far. The language he used was too far in it, but for the most part, if you were trying to keep a fan base, if you were trying to keep customers, when you're telling them your product now just is pretty much not valuable anymore, that you're going to start selling them a terrible product, it was a genius move. I mean, I said for years that the Dolans needed a letter moment to get the Indians fans behind them.
And their letter moment was, if you care about wins, you won't come to baseball games by Mark Pyro.
Exactly. Like they were selling stability and, smart decision makers and good baseball guys and, family and all this stuff that just wasn't all that exciting. And it was easy to think that they didn't care because they didn't have a letter moment like that. Right.
Yeah.
And they needed that. They were selling the things that we want from Gilbert. But Gilbert was selling us the thing that you need as a fan, and that is thinking that the people who run your team care about that team as much as you do.
Yes. Yes. I don't even know what else to say at this point.
And it's hard. Like, do you want to part of me wants to go start looking at Kevin Love trades. Part of me just doesn't even care. Oh, I know one thing that annoyed me a little bit. I saw a tweet. I want to say it was like Aaron Goldhammer or somebody like that. It was talking about Riz said on the radio that if LeBron leaves, it'll hurt his legacy a tiny bit. And everybody was yelling at him and saying, no, it doesn't. Of course it does. Like, he's going to be making highlights for another team for 4 years. Like, that's going to hurt his legacy in Cleveland a little bit, right? You can acknowledge that hurts his legacy a little bit while still having an overwhelmingly positive sentiment towards LeBron. Like whatever, he left. That's perfectly fine. He had every reason to. We practically pushed him out the door with that roster. We put him in the finals, and that's fine. But watching him and the Lakers play for a different team, and I'm supposed to act like that doesn't change things a little bit and how I'm going to remember him long term.
Of course it does. It was like everybody trying to tell you that you can't simultaneously appreciate Kyrie and also be salty that he demanded out.
Yes, exactly. Like
Of
we're allowed
course
to
it
have a little
changed
nuance to it.
things.
We're allowed to have a little nuance to all this. It doesn't have to be completely black or white. We don't have to pick teams.
I didn't
Yeah.
tell Will that he had to get rid of his Kyrie Irving jersey. He was wearing it today. But like I certainly told him like, "Oh yeah, he doesn't play for us anymore. He didn't want to play in our city anymore."
Right. And you can appreciate 2016 and still be like, hey, when you look at reasons LeBron left, that's up there, right? That's probably number 1 or 2. So yeah, it's okay to acknowledge those things. And so I want, and not that I have any authority over this or anybody needs to listen to what I say, but my hope with how we react to this compared to the coverage we got from the decision is that Cavs fans are overwhelmingly happy with what we got from LeBron and understand how lucky we were to get it. But yeah, we're allowed to be upset for a couple of days, and it's going to suck to watch him with the Lakers. And there's going to be times where he says stuff that makes us mad, and we're allowed to react to that. And there's going to be times where stupid stuff happens to him, and we're going to giggle about it a little bit. And just let us have that. Just let us be a little bit petty.
Yeah, well, there's already that cheesy video of somebody with a LeBron jersey on the ground acting like they're about ready to set fire to it, and then they drop a sign on top that says "Thank you, LeBron." Do we just give it's not even original. Do we have to do this crap?
Yep, and that's what's going to be.
Can you at least be original?
And that's, David Zabek wrote a great piece for Athletic where it's like we all went into this understanding what was probably going to happen. And understanding that we had more or less good feelings, even though he was going to leave. But there's the hard part. Tonight sucks, but the hard part is going to be all those little moments from here on out that test us on that kind of stuff, right? Like all those little things. He's going to make comments, and there's going to be little things like, oh, he could never do this in Cleveland, and all those kind of things that are going to annoy us. And it's going to be getting past all those. That's going to be the hard part, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know. I don't even know.
Are you going to, like in 2010, we all kind of reacted with, all right, screw LeBron. We're still huge Cavs fans, and we're still going to do this and still going to do that. Do you think that there's an instant drop-off that people stop caring, or do you think there's still some of that it's so ingrained in Cleveland at this point that Cavs fandom is still a pretty huge part of the city?
Oh, I think it's a pretty big part of the city. I think people will get really excited to see if Colin Sexton can play, but it's gonna drop off. It's gonna be more the hardcores. I feel really sorry for anybody who signed a 3-year ticket deal. I did not renew my Cavs seats. I was never going to renew my Cavs seats regardless of LeBron, just because I kind of did it, and it just I was kind of over it, to be honest with you. As much as I appreciate LeBron, as much as I loved the playoff runs, the expense of going to the NBA Finals for 4 straight years, 3 straight years for me as a ticket holder, was something else.
Yeah,
And I just don't think
imagine.
I don't think in this day and age most people can kind of just do that reflexively every single year, no matter what.
And I think this was a bad year because the regular season just was so awful. We were a good team. We were a good team that wasn't fun to follow at all. Like outside of winning that Toronto series, it was a really hard year for a fan, for a team that went to the NBA Finals, which is hilarious to say, but it's still sort of true. And so I think going from that and then LeBron leaving, it's going to be hard. But the one thing I'll say is that I'm amazed at how much Cleveland became an NBA city.
Me too.
Like random people who maybe weren't huge, even Cavs fans before LeBron came back, can talk pretty in depth about just random NBA things now in the city, and I think that's kind of fun and cool, and so it could maintain some.
So I will say that if nothing else, as long as I'm trying to put a happy spin on this whole thing, LeBron did give me one of the highlights of my entire life this year, not including the championship, when I took Will to his first Cavs game, and it happened to be the game-winning 3-pointer over the Pacers. So it wasn't all bad. And for all the negativity, negativity of this moment, and I've seen Zach Jackson say it. I've seen Brian Windhorst say it. Like, it's worth it. It's always worth it. It doesn't matter what LeBron puts you through, bad drama, bad regular seasons. It was all worth it.
100%. Yeah, I'm going to have those same memories. I was looking at pictures of my wife and I, like, at the parade the other day, and I still have the sign my daughter made when I took her to a Cavs game. And yeah, that stuff was totally worth it. And it's not going to be happening nearly as much with Colin Sexton as our best player.
Well, who knows? Maybe he is the next Greek freak. Maybe he's the next whatever.
That's going to be the headline of this pod, isn't it? Colin Sexton, the next Giannis Antetokounmpo.
No, it's actually going to be the one where LeBron leaves. ... Again.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, that's where we leave it. So
yeah.
I'm sorry it took us so long to get this thing on the books. You and I were trying to get together on Thursday and maybe Friday, but it's kind of fitting that it turns into a 30-minute podcast after LeBron ruins our Sunday.
At least it didn't happen at work, so we didn't have to stop being productive.
You would have had to just walk out. You would have had to just
I would have had
walk
to tell
out.
my boss I'm just taking PTO the rest of the day. Like, sorry, it's over for me. This is my vacation for the rest of the day. I can't do this.
I think we need to have a Twitter intervention with you.
I'm telling you, I'm trying to find a hobby outside. It's too much.
Can we do a Twitter-free July?
You mean cold turkey like that?
Yep.
I don't know if I can handle cold turkey. That seems like a lot. What if something important happens, like we make a Kyle Korver trade, and I'm not there to comment on it?
It'll have to go someplace else.
Am I allowed to read Twitter and just not tweet?
Yes.
Oh,
no,
okay, I can do that.
No.
No, you can't change the rules. You can't dangle that in front of me.
No, I had to think about it a second, because the problem with Twitter is I just picture you with your thumb dragging down for refresh and dragging down for refresh and dragging down for refresh, and that's the problem.
Yeah. I follow enough that, like, every time I do that, I get like 5 tweets, and I still do that most of the day. It's pretty pathetic. I do need an intervention.
Let's go July, Twitter free. Take a video of you deleting the app. I will do the same thing. Let's see how many people we can get on board. You can tweet until July 4th holiday is over, so we can let people know we're doing it. But from July 5th until the end of the month, you're going to go Twitter free.
Oh my God. So many things are going to go unsaid. All right, I'll try it.
No. Say I'm going to do it.
I'll do it. This is pure pressure. This is pure pressure. I would never agree to this if I wasn't live on the air right now.
Am I doing it with you?
If you're putting me through it, it's up to you. It's only if you're in an unhealthy place with Twitter. I'm in a very unhealthy place with Twitter.
I'd like to do it. It would feel good. All right, cool. I'll see you on Instagram.
I'll see you in August. I'll send you a LinkedIn message. It'll be great.
Well, we got till July 5th. So, all right, everybody. Thanks for listening. It's been the waitingfornextyear.com podcast.